This is The David Lehman Show.
North Georgia's own News Talk, WJUL 97.5 and 1230 on your AM dial. This is The David Lehman Show, and we got a great show for you today. We're going to be digging in on the Iran situation. It really is becoming a very sticky situation there in the Middle East, and also on Stuxnet, the first real cyber weapon used on a nation state, but quite an effective little badger at that. And I'd like to just do some fun headlines first here, Paul. Is that okay with you?
That's fine by me. Dave. Go right ahead.
Right ahead. Okay. Don't let the stupid title dissuade you from seeing Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Let the stupid plot, the stupid history, and the stupid action scenes do that for you. What a waste of time and space. I wanted money back. They wouldn't do it, blah, blah, blah. So 30 minutes in the theater, I'm out. I had $45 for a thing of popcorn and no more. A 400-pound woman was arrested for sitting naked on a bus stop bench, which of course begs the question, how'd they know? What gave it away? What was the cue? And finally, Maxine Waters. You can see the tone of my my voice change here because she just raises my blood pressure. Has challenged the Tea Party to a fight. Now, we couldn't pry a cogent thought out of that woman with a crowbar, and she believes she's got like the mental fortitude to engage in a verbal debate. Someone just needs to put that on pay-per-view. I would spend good money. It would bring in awesome amounts of revenues because she would just stand there like a verbal pinata getting poleaxed. And I'm not a member of the Tea Party, but I'd eagerly sign up for the opportunity to eviscerate that mental midget. You, sir.
Yeah, I tell you, she's making Cynthia McKinney from Georgia look like a Rhodes Scholar. So she's, you got to go pretty low to, make her look smart. So when anybody tells a certain group of people they can, go straight to HE double hockey sticks.
She did say that.
She did say that. She is fired up, ready to go. So
is she really ready to go, though? I mean, I know in her head she believes she's ready, but ready is a state of preparedness, and I don't think that comes anywhere even near her. It's not even in her vernacular, preparedness. Okay, a prescient individual is one, but just before we get going here, I'm no Nostradamus, Paul. I know you're looking at me like, oh my God, this guy walks on water. He can predict. All right, but a prescient individual is one who seems to know what's going on or what's going to happen before it actually happens. In our discussion of drones in American skies several weeks ago, I mentioned this. Hey, pull that music, will you? Not that music. It almost really doesn't matter who owns the planes. It matters who controls them. Indeed it does. And as luck would have it, today's article came off of the Drudge Report. I don't know exactly the actual source because Drudge just pulls in different stuff. But it says that drones vulnerable to terrorist hijacking, researchers say. Really? Well, that's a shocker, isn't it? As it turns out, a man in Colorado built for under $1,000 a spoofing device. A spoofing is a little more technical way of manipulating GPS. At any rate, he developed a spoofing device under $1,000 that took control of a drone, and he flew it around like a toy in front of Homeland Security personnel with eyes bigger than saucers on this Colorado mountain. They almost really just couldn't believe it. And what's going on is that the signal normally comes in to give the plane direction and its map and route from GPS's way high in the sky. And this guy had a terrestrial-based GPS, so it fools the plane first, takes control of it, and then he flies it wherever he likes. So this time it was an American citizen highlighting the susceptibility. Next time, who knows? The Muslim Brotherhood?
Well, Iran already probably took over that drone that they captured from us.
Very good point. They mentioned that that's how they might have done it, and that's why it landed without having crashed.
Yeah, so they're already ahead of the game. It's already the theory's already been proven. So I definitely have to say, yes, you were ahead of your time.
Ahead
Dave.
Of the time by just a couple of weeks. But you know what? Being ahead of the mainstream media by a couple of weeks, it's it's not that warm feeling I thought it would be, but I like to point it out at least, just to do so.
You have to.
If you're just joining us, this is the David Lehman Show. We're on 97.5 WJUL in Northeast Georgia, and I have a We're going to be getting into Iran here in just one moment, figuring out what it is they're going to do and how the world is going to handle them. But I have kind of a humorous introduction that I'm going to segue and parlay into our story of Iran. And it is, a burglar broke into a house one night. He shone his flashlight around looking for valuables, and when he picked up a CD player to place in his sack, a strange, disembodied voice echoed from the dark saying, "Jesus is watching you." He nearly jumped out of his skin, clicked off his flashlight, froze. When he heard nothing more after a bit, he shook his head, promised himself a vacation, and after the next big score, then he clicked the light on again and began searching for more valuables. Just as he pulled the stereo out so he could disconnect the wires, clear as a bell this time, he heard, "Jesus is watching you." Freaked out, he shone his light around frantically, looking for the source of the voice. Finally, in the corner of the room, the flashlight beam came to rest on a parrot. "Did you say that?" he hissed at the parrot. "Yep," the parrot confessed, then squawked, "I'm just trying to warn you." The burglar relaxed. "Warn me, huh? Who in the world are you?" "Moses," replied the bird. "Moses?" The burglar starts laughing. "What kind of people would name a bird Moses?" "The kind of people that would name a Rottweiler Jesus." Very cute. But And I wonder what kind of people would sit back taking no action when another country that is actively seeking atomic weapons calls for their total eradication, their genocide. Only a suicidal people would do so. Paul, do you believe the Israelis are this sort, as Iran seeks to eradicate them from the planet, which they said on multiple occasions? And if you were Israel, how would you handle Iran?
Well, I think behind the scenes, if they didn't have the confidence that they could stop it, or at least as of right now, they would have already, reached out to touch Iran. And I think
reach out and touch somebody.
Yes, and because it'd be a very costly thing, a very dangerous mission.
Is it more dangerous to go in and start the war, or is it more dangerous to not do anything, kick back, and just kind of wait to be on the receiving end of a hydrogen bomb?
Well, I think that Netanyahu is somebody who is not to be trifled with.
I agree.
And like we were talking about last week, we have allies. Israel is really only true democracy. Well,
Japan.
No, in the Middle East.
Oh, in the Middle East, I'm talking.
They're an island, and they're surrounded by enemies, but they are a very loyal, ally.
Agreed.
And,
agreed.
We have obligated ourselves to protect them, and I think that if we don't, I think they have every right to preemptively strike in that part of the world. I think that's that might be your only chance.
What a hornet's nest!
It would be ugly no matter what.
Lebanon, Syria, now Egypt, with the Muslim Brotherhood taking over there.
That will be interesting. In the next 12 months, will tell a lot whether or not the military keeps control of the presidency. I think behind the scenes, they're probably reassuring us that they're going to keep the lid on this,
right?
But I think long term, we're going to have to be real careful about dealing with those folks,
and
they're going to be emboldened.
Right. And Vladimir Putin was just in Israel, essentially telling Netanyahu, let's simmer down, don't make any mistakes. Look what happened to the Americans in Iraq and Afghanistan.
He is emboldened as well. He's making the president look foolish right now, and
the president doesn't. Our president.
Yes.
Yeah, doesn't need any help from Putin.
Well, Putin is definitely piling on at the moment. Then,
yep.
And definitely, and he, Syria is a big, financial interest for them.
And now they've just stoked the Turkish fire while shooting down their warplane.
It's amazing how quiet the Turks are on that.
They're not so quiet anymore. They moved all their military to the Syrian. Not all their military, a huge portion of their military to the Syrian border today.
Nothing clarifies the mind like getting one of your best jets shot out of the sky. They've been riding the fence for a long time, and I think this might bring them back into the fold.
Do you think it could have been staged? It seems a little odd. Syria, with all these other problems on her hands, and uprisings, and international, condemnation, and one plane goes, one single lone fighter jet, and they shoot it down. It seems a little suspect.
Well, the tough part about that part of the world is that you don't get news reports that are accurate.
All parts of the world. We don't get accurate news reports here either.
Or I should say, the least amount of information out of a news organization.
Who was the guy that reported from the Middle East when we first went into Iraq? It was Baghdad Bob, I think. Was that Baghdad Bob?
No, that was the general that was in the city as he was saying, all is fine here, nothing to see here, as our tanks were rolling in.
His head explodes. And
right.
One of the brilliant things I really was very impressed with the American military on was that the first Desert Storm, the George Bush Sr., commenced, is before the shock and awe, before the first bomb really fell over there, but all our equipment was around, and they knew it was just a matter of time till it was coming. The Revolutionary Guard was this, Revolutionary Guard, they're going to kick everybody's butt across. All right. They're in their little holes in the desert and the bunkers in the sand, and they have a minimum amount of electronics and communication, but they did have fax machines there, and I think that's how the orders kind of got sent out. We were looking to take out Saddam's communications first, but before we did, the CIA, they would fax the Revolutionary Guards to their fax number in their holes in the sand in the desert. We know where you are. We know who you are. When the first bomb falls, you're going to walk out with your entire crew, at least anybody that wants to live. You're going to walk out holding your guns in the air and in both hands, and we'll spare you. Otherwise, bye-bye.
Well, every time we try, everybody thinks the U.S. is getting, becoming a second-class world, nation. We continue to do things behind the scenes that prove us to still be the world's superpower.
That's a very good point. And we will be right back on 97.5. This is the David Lehman Show. Sit tight.
News Talk 97.5 FM and AM 1230 calls itself the voice of Lake Chatuge. And every day we continue to make it more than just a slogan.
There's no question. You guys are talking about what needs to be talked about around here.
The other stations don't even have local shows. I want to hear what's going on in our government and our local schools.
Your newscaster is so much more local and interesting.
But it's more than just an entertaining morning show and a hustling news department. It's about getting out in the community.
I appreciate that WJUL is everywhere I go. You're the only station that I ever see at any events.
You're the station there in the Little League All-Star games on the weekends. What a great idea.
And I love listening to the Braves on your station.
Events big and small, issues easy and tough. There's just one station bringing it all to you.
Voice of Lake Chatuge.
The voice of Lake Chatuge.
What can I say? You guys are the voice of Lake Chatuge.
News Talk for the Lake Chatuge area, WJUL. You've heard of the Pittsburgh Steelers Steel Curtain and the 1927 New York Yankees, but they've got nothing on News Talk 97.5 FM's Dream Team. Start every day with Glenn Beck from 9 to noon, followed by the King of Talk Rush Limbaugh from noon to 3. Sean Hannity has the mic and the news of the day from 3 to 6, and then Neil Bortz rants and entertains from 6 to 9. Beck.
The next time they tell you how global warming causes all sorts of massive natural disasters.
Limbaugh.
Barack Obama is destroying the United States economy.
Hannity.
Georgia Democrats are also scattering as Obama lands in Georgia.
And Bortz.
They actually thought that the mayor of Atlanta, the ever-corrupt Bill Campbell, they actually thought that I was going to snap his neck.
Try finding another station with that kind of talent. You can't. They're only on the voice of Lake Chatuge, News Talk 97.5 and AM 1230 WJUL.
Hey, you guys! Letter in my hand, like a precious bloom hair on the floor. I hear you are.
News Talk 97.5 WJUL. This is the David Lehman Show. We are waist deep, trying to get neck deep in the debacle in the Middle East known as Iran.
Yeah, Dave, before the break, we were talking about, how America is perceived across the world a lot of times about, becoming less powerful and China's taking over as the next superpower.
Right.
And, some of the things I was saying is that I have this continual belief in that this country rebounds and we prove ourselves time and time again. And I know you wanted to talk more about some of the effects that we're doing.
Right, the cyber weaponry and the Stuxnet.
Right, that's a perfect example of that.
Now, I ask you this, though. Do you remember the old IBM XT? One of the early computers. It was kind of a computer, but it had a screen sort of built in.
I don't want to say I'm that old, but yeah, I vaguely recall
you
that.
do. But you helped build it, Paul. Of course you recall it.
I was in the abacus division.
Cute. Now, if you remember, if you ran that computer for a while, let's say if you had it for a year or so, you could turn off the computer with the touch of a button, but there would kind of be a haze, a bleed, something you would see on the screen that would still have words on it, but it was really just bleed over. It wasn't actually anything coming out of that computer, and I think there's a lot of that goes on with the United States.
How so?
Psychologically, like for instance, people still think that the Constitution actually applies and Congress actually works off of the Constitution and within the confines of it, and policies predicated on that. It's not really true.
I think of it more as an elastic band where sometimes it is stretched, but then it is bound to contract. And once again, my faith in this country, yes, I feel that contraction coming on. I think it's in our DNA, David.
So you're talking about a pendulum, really?
That too, yeah. I guess, yeah. Whatever analogy you want to apply, I really think that this time around, this election, and what has preceded it, all these other indications,
right?
Like Walker in Wisconsin, things like that. Mm-hmm. We, as a nation, inherently believe in limited government, and although there has been some stretches, we're about to take some of that back.
And even if we do believe in limited government, half of the citizens are on some form of governmental assistance, right? 50% on the non-taxpayer. I know when somebody...
It's at a tipping point, but I think it's not so far. People still strive to be rich in this country. I think that's...
In every country, right, which is why communism really can never work.
Well, in our country, most people believe that they can. In other countries,
the American dream is still fresh and alive.
That's right, and people want to believe that they can be rich, and therefore class envy does not work at a certain point where they think they can just say, I'll take this guy's money and give it to you. That's on the surface, it works for a while, but again, I think people in the middle inherently understand the flaw in that thinking, and they want to be rich too, and they don't want the rules to be changed before they get there.
Right, and certainly darn sure not after they get there.
Yes, true.
Okay. Stuxnet, you've heard of this before?
Well, yes, and thanks to the Obama administration,
it all too well. Right?
That's right, methods and...
It was the most fascinating piece of software material. This thing... They had a real problem. The goal was to effect or knock out
the facility, the centrifuges that were creating the uranium to make the bomb.
To make the bombs, and there's a whole bunch of them out there. 40 different locations that are all underground, and they are not connected to the internet. So how do you get an internet-based virus, which is essentially what Stuxnet is? How do you get this virus in there without having somebody walk in and plug it in or hook it up? So here's more or less how it worked. The idea was that Stuxnet knew what it was looking for. It was looking for a very specific piece of industrial machinery, and on this piece of machinery it had fans in it to keep whatever cooled. They have to be blowing all at the same time, and its job was to just go in and to just give a beep, just a little bleep, get those fans to slow down just a little bit, which would basically spoil whatever was in that machine working. They knew that scientists went back from their home to there, and they basically just kind of had to throw a Hail Mary and say, if we can infect basically the whole country or the whole world, because this is going out looking for just this one machine, we can infect everything. At some point, one of those scientists is going to take a flash drive from his house with information on it and plug it in. It's not going to know that the virus is on there. So the virus itself was very careful to leave no trace of itself. It was supposed to go in when it found that device. It was going to give a little blip on those fans. They would slow down, spoil the detergent manufacturing, and out it would
go.
Baby
milk factory, David.
Yes, baby seal clubbing would destroy whatever they had cooking. And that's basically exactly what happened, and left no trace, and it got out unknown.
I think it also tracked keystrokes. It looked for passwords. It infiltrated other equipment, and like you said, left no trace. And this had been running for quite a long time. And again, I would rather not know about all of this, because I have an inherent confidence that, we are behind the scenes taking care of this stuff. But now that it's out, I'm more than happy to, shout our praises. Not just SEAL Team 6 that I'm proud of. Right. It's those eggheads somewhere underground taking care of, the cyber warfare side of it.
True, and it was, they believe it was 2 teams. I believe it was an Israeli and an American team that got together to put this massively awesome Stuxnet virus together to do what it needed to do.
Right, and again, that shows our closeness, our friendship with Israel.
Is it enough to stave off war?
I think so. I think if, assuming a change in the administration,
right,
I believe that, again, the pendulum will swing back. Countries will second guess what we're doing. They won't be convinced that we're going to just lay down and allow things to happen. And it will force them to hold back. And I think that, we could, I may not be that lucky, or we may not be that lucky. They may try to pull something off right early on. But I am hopeful that this is a sign of things to improve.
The code for Stuxnet is almost freely available. Not every aspect of it, but big chunks of it are freely available. And it seems that the hackers are actually better and more. They're working quicker and more assiduously than the governments of the world are. Does that frighten you a little bit?
No, I mean, I think we just heard of, I just read something about a private company talking about doing lunar missions. And, everybody's talking about taking money away from NASA, which, I don't necessarily agree with.
I don't necessarily.
But here we are, Virgin Atlantic, he's taking people up into space.
Oh, they just pinched him, too, on the carbon footprint he may be leaving.
I'm sure he gives a rat's patootie on that. Sure. But, again, it is the entrepreneurial spirit of people in this world. It may not have to necessarily be Americans, but they make their mark here in this country. And God bless this country. This is the only place to be right now.
Why do you believe companies move their factories overseas? From America, manufacturing base virtually disappeared.
Any manufacturing facility, their job is to make profits for their shareholders, their bondholders, and that's why they do it. And that's the capitalistic system. That
is the capitalistic system. But why would companies choose to leave the United States?
Well, Dave, I'm thinking that might be a topic for another show.
It may be a topic. Oh, speaking of topics for other shows, we are going to be diving into the Constitution. And anytime you see somebody on the boob tube going, I know my rights, well, let me tell you what. You're about to learn your rights. Next week, right here on The David Lehman Show. We will see you next Sunday. Thank you for tuning in.